Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I am an Axiological Atheist, and I'm here with an exciting guest. Could you go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about you?
Absolutely, I can. My name is Bettina von Stamm. The name might be a giveaway that I am of German origin, and I've been living here in the UK for far too long, maybe. Okay, so I might even consider going back or somewhere else, but I've been living here a very long time. And my studies brought me here, and then the notion of going back did not appear, so I decided to stay on. And my path, I've described one of understanding and enabling innovation. And that has led me to all sorts of interesting and fascinating things, and kept me quite busy with it over the last 30 years. And I choose this path because I wanted something that I could really be passionate about.
Oh, I agree with that.
And a lot of the other things, or the things that I've done before, didn't really deliver that. And I think initially I didn't really quite know what was fascinating me so much about innovation, other than that I always like to understand things. And when I went on the journey, and I always describe myself as one of the people, when I started to talk about innovation, I would jump up and down and say, everyone needs to become more creative and innovative. And it didn't take too long for me to realize that changing at that level is quite tricky. So if you're a person who is very passionate about change, then you're not likely to become a person who is very passionate about keeping the status quo and vice versa.
Well, that's true. Well, those would be contradictory things. How can I know? That's why a lot of times I challenge ideas and things, and then people like say, they don't like when I do that. Yeah, well, how exactly do you want anything to ever change or to, develop ideas if we don't ever challenge anything?
Yeah, well, I think there are people around who just prefer things how they are, whatever that means. And for me, that realization that it is quite, it's quite difficult to change this fundamental outlook on life, became quite a relief, because I realized that everyone wanted to change the world all the time and change everything all the time. That just would become chaos. Right? So nothing would ever get done, because we would constantly just have more ideas of all the things that can and should change. And we probably would still have, that would probably help to maintain the status quo better, because we would never get around to doing anything, to implementing it. And so that was quite important for me, because that meant that in the very common view, innovation is for the select few, the people with the bright ideas, with the light bulb moments, and all the rest of it. But this realization that if we have just crazy ideas all the time, actually also nothing will happen, made me realize that in order to have innovation, i.e. having an idea and then doing something with it to make it real,
yes,
requires people right across the spectrum. The ones with the crazy ideas, the ones who like to hang on to the status quo because they keep us grounded and make sure things actually happen, and all the rest of it. And so this is what I really love about innovation, is that there's a role for everyone to play, and they don't need to change; they can be who they are.
Well, I think that's a very wise, assessment. That I think if you can figure out a world in general where people, you don't have to motivate them by force, but can motivate them by desire. I mean, I agree. So I think that's a very astute point, that if you're going to organize, innovation, of course you have to have some people that always will do the thing new, and you need some people that will not, because if you do everything new, then nobody ever is in a state, like you said, of actual production. You're just inventing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was one of the first big realizations for me. And if I think about what I'm most passionate about now, then sort of innovation is still the foundation of it. And what's been building on top over the last 10 or so years is a concern and passion for system.
Hey. It's my little kitty spirit.
Wonderful. Wonderful that Spirit is joining us. I love it. I'm a great lover of cats.
I have two of them.
Yeah, so on the foundation of innovation is sort of the concern and the desire for sustainability. So I still remember when I first talked about the dark side of innovation and was saying that any innovation should have sustainability considerations as a foundation. It was sort of 2011 or something like that when I first used it in one of my speeches. I was really, really nervous about it. And I was apologizing, or almost apologizing for saying, sustainability needs to be the foundation of innovation. And now I just think, well, guys, whether you like it or not, it has to be like that. Otherwise, our children or our children's children will not have a future any longer. We just cannot continue the stuff that we've been doing for the last 150 years.
Well, right. Yeah, you can't keep digging resources that are not unlimited.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is really what my main focus is. What can we do? What kind of mindset is required? Because I think this mindset is more than anything else. What kind of mindset is required to move towards sustainability?
And how would you say that it's being received? Because you said you were worried about doing that. How are you received? Were you received as negatively as you were thinking you might?
Well, I think it depends. One of the problems, of course, is always preaching to the converted. So we tend to find people who think like us, and then we all agree, isn't it either wonderful or isn't it tragic or whatever it is?
Right.
We just all not again and that. And so, of course, one of the biggest challenges is to convince those who have a different worldview.
Right. So you're still referring to the sustainability in a sense, because you're talking about sustaining the idea itself. In other words, what I mean is, like, if I say I'm a good company, well, that's an idea, because it takes a lot of behaviors, and generally there's always going to be maybe some behavior that's not good. So you're having to mitigate those together. So that's the common theme that you're talking about, right? That you're having to deal with.
Yes. That's a very, very good observation. I think it is always my shift in thinking around innovation was one that is driven by realizing it's a mindset that people have, and in order to shift people's mindsets, you cannot do it by telling people what to do. Right? So I mean, it's interesting. I've never called myself a consultant, because for me, my perspective on what consultants do is tell other people what to do. Right? I know it, so therefore I tell you what to do. And because innovation is about values and behaviors, we will not change those just because someone's telling us that that's what we need to do, right? It's more likely to come, well, whoa, hang on a second, just because you tell me, I definitely want to.
Right.
And so this is why I've always described myself as a catalyst. So I'm trying to tell the stories, enable people to experience certain things so they can draw the conclusions themselves rather than me telling them.
Yeah, I like stories. I think that stories are. I have a counseling background, and so I like because it reminds me of, in a sense, of doing like drama play. You can do that in counseling, where you relive things or you think about them in a new way. Like look at, you have some play act behaviors, and then you can observe, and then in other words, like things that happen in your life, I could talk and be that person again that happened, and you get to rethink about it in a new way. And I think because sometimes it's like our filter, how we perceive it. It doesn't even mean that's how it totally is.
Yeah, I think so. The word filter that you mentioned, I think we've got so many of them, and most of them we are not aware of.
Oh, most of them. But I think that's part of our psyche, though, to me, to not be aware, because in a sense, if we were always so aware that we are going to die, always so aware that we could crash in a car, or that, that we could choke on food, or, we could just sit there and catastrophize. And like you said, once again, we would back at not doing anything because we would be terrified. So I think that there's some natural point of denial where we just enjoy the moment, because to not do that is almost sometimes too hard.
Yeah, do you think that people really enjoy the moment.
I think that's the only time we can really enjoy, because when we think of the future, we're fantasizing. When we think about the past, we're reliving. It's the moment, it's the here and now that we actually develop, to me, the meaning of life. Because when we think about the future, we're still living in the now. We're fantasizing. Now, it's not that it can't be, to me, a positive thing. But if we don't remember to, as you were saying, if we don't, in a sense, look at it as a whole, if someone says, I think about the future, you think, great. Well, then they say, I can't get a job because all I do is think about the future. You're like, okay, that's not good. So I think there's a balance, and I think the balance is remembering always the here and now. Because
I could not agree more. And I also believe that a lot of people don't live in the here and now. They either live in the past or they live in the future. And they forget to live the only time when they can.
Right. Because if you think about the past, a lot of times people think regret. And if you think about the future, it's just hopes. So it's really the here and now that you're actually the doing.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of part of one of the programs which I took recently. We had part of the reason was the reading was an article on letting go of hope and fear. And that was my first reaction was like, what? Letting go of hope? Why would I want to do that? But then I realized what you just said, hope sort of makes us live in the future, waiting for something to happen.
Right.
And fear is just coming from the past and the experience that you don't want to experience again or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
So,
and that's why I think that for me, like you're talking about innovation, an innovation in thinking is that we actually write our own narratives. In other words, like, what's the difference between a victim and a survivor sometimes is simply the mindset of the person. Not the experience always. So to me, it's, in other words, like, if I said, you're so great that you went through that and were able to be strong, then you feel good, you feel like a survivor. If I say, yeah, that was really terrible, it happened, and you should never, you start to feel more like a victim. I'm just saying, so to me, going back to the thought of innovation and how working best for ourselves, I think it's a realization of our assets available and then the utilization of them. And in the context of innovation is figuring out, for me, would be figuring out how to write my narrative of my life in a way it's utilizing the most of the assets and minimizing the most of the negatives. But as you know, I mean, in life, that doesn't mean it's going to, always be the same. There's not a consistency. I don't think that even in innovation, there's not a consistency of everything's always 100% better than last time. Sometimes it's a little bit better, but that's still good. 10% better efficiency is still 10% better efficiency.
Yeah. And I mean, I really sort of like what you said about, this focusing on what our contributions, understanding what we are good at. What is it that I have to offer? What is it that my contribution can be? And then figuring out where best to bring that to play and how to contribute that. Rather than, I think, also if you think about organizations, how many times in the annual review is sort of the discussion, like, let's have a look at the things that you're not very good at and that you really need to improve on this one, and people just go, no, I don't really like it, I don't really want it, but they say, well, I have to improve on it. Then why can't it just play to my strength, which would bring out so much more energy. And I think for me it would also be, if organizations were focusing more on what the individual person has to contribute rather than what they can't contribute. I think, for example, levels of engagement would go up dramatically.
Right, because that's similar to what I said. It's the difference between being a victim and being, in a sense, a survivor. So in the sense of feeling like you're always like, say if there's an annual review, you're always dreading it. And instead of thinking, great, I'm going to be acknowledged, or I'm going to find out how to be better. It's started with the negative, and so because I think the first thing that you're conquering whenever you're figuring out ideas is yourself. The first thing we stumble from is us. No matter the outside input, it's our reaction to it. And so to me, we're still always dealing with the us, the mind, in between our own head.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This sort of comes back to the point on awareness. We can only get out of our own way when we are aware which bits of us get in the way.
Exactly. So can you tell us some interesting thing that you've experienced trying to get your ideas to people?
Well, I just think there's the way that I think I can accomplish that is really, well, I think the only way to accomplish that is really through stories and through creating possibilities for people to relate with what I say at their own personal level.
So do you have any incidents you can tell us about?
Yes, I mean, whatever that example. But this is a sort of a fairly well-known video. You can find it on YouTube. I'm not quite sure if you use for gorilla video or something like that, it might come up. So it is a video where some students, two student teams play with the ball, bouncing the ball and passing that to each other.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know whether you've come across it. Well, one of the teams has got a white top and the other one's got a black top.
I don't remember that video. But
I set it up asking people how good are you at multitasking. And so I asked them I set it up that it becomes really competitive and they're really very keen to want to get the right answer and all the rest of it. And so I'll ask them to focus on the team with the white tops. And it's quite complicated because each of the teams has a goal. Right, so it's a bit confusing. And I said, well, it's about multitasking. I only asked you to focus on two things. And this is how many times does the ball of the white team touch the floor, and how many times is the ball being passed on to another person. So, and it's only about a 1 minute video. And the people are really sort of concentrating very hard, and you can see that with their fingers and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then after the short video kicks over, then the question, so how many bounces, how many passes, and they've got their answer, they vary widely. And then I asked the question, and who has seen the gorilla? Because while people were so busy counting, there was a man in the gorilla.
Oh no, I have seen that. Yes.
And so they worked with the person, the gorilla suit, not only walks right into the center of the video, he stands there beating his chest before and people don't see it. Right? The people who do see it generally stopped counting or got distracted or any of these things. And so I use that in a lot of ways to help people understand if someone sees an innovation opportunity, it's like seeing the gorilla. And you come with your idea to the rest of the organization who's been so focused on so busy counting that they did not see the gorilla. And so you say, well, there's this gorilla out there. We really need to go and get him. And they say, don't be ridiculous. There's no gorilla out there. I've been watching the same space that you've been watching, and there was no gorilla. So using these things that people can experience it for themselves. And it happens not only to the other people, but it happens to them. And that will make them understand better that if someone sees an opportunity that I can't see, it doesn't mean it isn't there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that I haven't seen it.
Well, yeah. Well, I think groups are good in general. I prefer group therapy. I think that it allows us sometimes to not see stuff directly, and that allows us to feel comfortable accepting things. Like if you say you didn't see it, like in other words, you say that video and you show just one person, they're going to have a real issue with the fact that they didn't see it. But if there's a group of people and no one saw it, now they feel part of a group and okay. So the only thing that changed in a sense was just the group dynamics, but it really does affect our ability to accept and not accept ideas. And that's also, to me, where we need to be careful, because we can have a tendency to have a belief bias and just believe things just because we're told by people that are in our group or whatever, like you were talking about. And so that can work in a negative way. If everyone in the group says they didn't see the thing and they don't want to see it, they can all say we didn't see it, and everyone will just agree that it's not there, which can be a problem.
Yeah, at least in my scenario, I then show the film again and explain to people what has happened.
Right.
And then some people say, well, that's a different video.
Have they said that?
Because they can't possibly believe that they didn't see something that is so obviously right in front of their face. But it is these kinds of things so that the people experience it for themselves. It's not that someone else is doing what someone else is doing. Right.
So have you ever anyone that just refused to think that was there?
Well, I think some people will take a little bit longer to buy into it. Most of them realize that, when I'm showing it again, then of course they also see it, because they are not focused on counting, so they are open to seeing what's there. But it's pretty. I know that after I've used it, someone told me a couple of years later that they now always have a goal of I don't know, it's a different quote, about the number. But anyway, so that people pick it up, and it becomes sort of part of the language that they are using. So if someone has a crazy idea, then they can say, just remember the gorilla video, right? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Well, that's good. They can use it as a tool.
Yes. Yeah.
So what would you say is your most rewarding experience sharing with someone like that, and then having it, bloom into something positive?
I think what I always, when I get the feeling I have done my work, or I've done good work, is when I teach and I write and I speak at conferences. When people start to become still, and I can see that the wheels are starting to whirl and to click and to turn, and it's almost like the gaze goes a little bit inward.
Yeah, definitely.
That's when I feel great. That's what I wanted to help you think differently, or see things that you haven't seen before, or understand things that you haven't understood before. Put puzzle pieces together so that the picture they haven't seen before can emerge. I think
that's wonderful. So do you see that as an extension of you being a humanitarian, or do you see that as simply a business angle?
No, it's definitely not a business angle.
Well, I wanted to know, because it could have been. I mean, I don't want to assume. I mean, it could be that this is just a good business trick, and it's not something that you.
Right?
I don't assume that it's a given that everyone does things for altruistic reasons. I try to generally do that, but that's not a given for everybody.
Okay. I know. No, I think it's more like, with a lot of the work I do, I describe it more like I can't help myself. It just feels like it is something that wants to be done, and I'm there to do it. And so very often when someone asks me to get involved in a project, more likely than not, I will just say yes or no, because I love the project, or I love the person who's offering, asking me to get involved in the project. And then afterwards I think, well, hang on a second, there are these bills to be paid. What am I going to do about that? And life has a way of working itself out, I find.
Yeah.
Comes out from the wash somehow.
Usually with a lot of help from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you find it personally rewarding then? More than just a business, rewarding, you know what I'm saying? Like you're doing a lot of good in the world or something?
Well, I think no, I'm not. Whether I'm doing, you see, this is not even whether I'm doing good or not. It just feels that stuff that needs to be done.
So
It's
in other
almost,
words, you're removing yourself from the goodness or the non-goodness of it. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I think maybe sort of one example. I do occasionally write a blog. I call it my irregular mail out, and it's something that I do. I used to do it more regularly. At the moment, it's actually every 2-3 months rather than every 4 to 6 weeks. And I post them on I've got the website for Innovation Leadership Forum, which is my organization, which is me and me. But anyway, so I had a profile. I had a student who was helping me post things on my website. And she said to me, "What are your Google Analytics like?" And I haven't got the foggiest idea. I'm saying these things because they need to be said, and whether people read them or not, I can't. They either do or they don't. It doesn't mean that I stop writing them. I just write them because these things need to be said, and so I do it, and people read it. Great. If they don't, well, I still need to say it. So this is a little bit what I mean. Yeah, I just can't help myself.
So you're doing it for the perceived value you hold inherently, or you're doing it because you know it's going to be benefit for the world, and so it doesn't matter if people don't understand, like the gorilla.
Well, I mean, it is really like when I read something, I really feel sort of an energy bubbling up inside me.
Yeah.
And it just has to come out. It is generally that's when I write a blog. This is generally what this is. I read an article, and sort of something triggers me in that article, and I just have to write about it. This is generally how my mail come about. Because there's something that I just have to say something about it. I just can't let it be like that.
Wonderful.
And this is how it emerges. And yeah, I mean, it's sometimes you're just talking about it. It's just sort of it's almost really selfish because I just have to do it.
Well, share it with us. What does it make you think of?
So what does
you said that talking about this brings it up, and I was saying, what does that bring up for you? What is the connection?
Yeah, that's sort of basically the fact that I'm doing it because I just have to. Sounds almost a little bit selfish to me.
Well, it would depend. I mean, I feel that I have to do videos and I have to do blogs and stuff, but I have this goal. I want to change the world. I want to enlighten people. I want to make people think. I want to make people to be, to see the value in things. I'm an axiologist, which is a value theorist. So in other words, I'm a philosopher in a sense, and I focus on what maximizes value. And then how do we assess value? How do we attain value? How do we keep value? And then how do we acknowledge value? Because talking, to you is a value. I'm getting value from this conversation, and you're getting it too. Otherwise, you already would have asked to leave. And so, but to me, it's constantly assessing. We do this anyways, naturally. I mean, even animals. It's a biological thing that happened that we do things, we think axiologically in a sense, but in very general terms, not the way I do it. Because I intentionally break it down and think about things, layers of value. I think at least 3 types of value automatically. I think of intrinsic value, things unto itself. Extrinsic value, what the thing can produce. And then systemic value, what that thing can do through time. Because those are different kinds of things. I'm constantly trying to produce the last kind. The hardest kind, but the most rewarding and long-lasting kind. If you can build systemic value, which is value that does not change through years. In other words, if I write a blog about my emotions for the moment, it may only be for the moment. If I talk about, in a sense, the dynamic way that I am going to bring something about, like the fact that I just finished a thing on language. I wanted to explain like how we got to language. But how I like to explain things is the entire evolution. In other words, I start back at 100,000 years ago when they're making scratches on rocks. Because to me, that's the first symbolism. Because to me, words, ideas are put in packets of information. But it's the fact of us seeing value in symbols that express things. So to me, it's seeing the layers of value in things. Because sometimes, like you said, I just do it for myself. Well, you do it for more than that. You do it for your emotional well-being. And it would seem that that's not just that reason, because then you wouldn't try to do things that benefit others. One could simply say that you're motivated. I'm motivated through care to want to help the world. I see there's a problem. I see that I can probably do something about it. And I feel that a compulsion to do it, because if I don't, who will? If no one cares, then what kind of world will that be? If in other words, a lot of people say, well, because of Trump and a lot of the stuff is so toxic, it's hard, to be kind. Even more so that we need kind people, because we have a shortage. So to me, the need is greater. I see the value, and I see too that people don't get. I feel like people think that nothing ever changes. It changes constantly. That's all it ever does. It's constantly changing. So to me, it's realizing that I am part of the change. Everyone is. We affect everybody. I'm affecting you right now. You're affecting me. We're affecting people watching. Everyone is constantly affecting each other. That's not a bad thing on itself. It could be a good thing. And so to me, it's just how we assess and we place the value.
Yeah, I think it's again the awareness that it is indeed so, that whatever action we take will have an impact. And so therefore, we have a choice of what kind of impact we want to have.
And you're choosing a positive impact. Sharing ideas with others. What it sounds like is because you're trying to improve things, because you want innovation, or you want, so your goal is, to me, it sounds like positive focus. And if you're doing blogs that are not just about money, and it has to be not just about money, because you said you just do it about your passion. So if you do it just about your passion, share the gift of our passion is something. Just think of the beauty of music. Someone writes a passion of their song, and then 1,000 years later, it will still, if we can play it, will still probably touch people. Just the fact that like a poem written, 300 years ago can touch somebody. It's that passion. So the sharing of our genuineness, to me, is the value is high.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sort of, the emphasis on being really genuine.
And that's what you're doing.
So one of the other things. Sorry?
I said, and that is what you are doing. You said you just write from your heart. That's called being genuine, and I put a high value on that.
Yep.
So see, like I'm saying, so see the narrative for yourself. You were seeing it only through the possibility that you were doing something wrong by having passion, and I've helped you to receive that same behavior in a new light and give it a new narrative, and then utilize its value now in a new way. Because to you, that was actually your, in a sense, gorilla that was dancing.
Yeah, maybe it was, yes. Yeah.
Well, because now you should see that what you're doing is actually a gift, the gift of your passion. And that your gift of your genuineness. You're writing from your heart. I think that there isn't anything better.
I agree. I agree.
So thank you for giving your gift. See?
It's my pleasure.
But see how, like you were saying though, see how we actually miss the value of things? And we attach inaccurate value. And then because of that inaccurate value that we give things, then we cannot utilize it fully.
Yeah. That is very true.
So, can you tell us about some of the interesting things that you've talked about in conferences that people enjoyed?
really, if you've got another hour, I can go to my other thing. But no. And I think it is really, it is just really fairly small things like the gorilla that makes us aware of our own behaviors. It is about sort of helping understand a bigger picture of what is happening in the 21st century. Sort of what are the things that drive the conditions in the 21st century? What are the consequences, and why do we need to think about it? I mean, it's also sort of small things like the shift from everyone needs to be more creative and innovative to valuing diversity and what that means for everyone. Because, I mean, you sometimes literally can feel the tension going out of everyone because, phew, so I don't have to become more creative. While all of us are, most of us don't perceive ourselves to be creative. And so there is a sense of relief when I share that bit. So, sort of when people feel there's something different, but we're not quite sure what it means and what it requires from us in this different context. For example, one of the big things of the 21st century for me is that it is so much more complex than anything we've experienced before. And then sort of say, if we're living in a highly complex context, what are the consequences? Consequences that in the last century we were allowed to have the illusion of control. If you're living in a complex system, you can no longer have that illusion. That illusion is taken away from you. And so things like that, and then to talk about, what does that actually mean for leadership? What does it mean for hierarchy? How does hierarchy attempt to survive in a complex system? It just can't.
Yeah, I'm an anarchist, so I'm not for hierarchy anyway. I'm more fond of hierarchy, where basically you take social structures, but it's not done on the same kind of ranking of like worth. It's done by more like ability, like you were talking about before. There's a difference between if I assess like that just because you have this title, you're smarter, more worth. That doesn't mean that. You could have the person that's a janitor and actually have an idea that's better than the person that's the CEO. Not saying all the time, but I'm just saying that. So I really care about the value. So to me, I like structures that utilize the value. In other words, the ideas are better than the people that are, in a sense, the title that you're given.
Yeah, but I think this is generally what, well, at least my understanding of hierarchy. This is what hierarchy does not allow to happen. Hierarchy puts people on different levels, and therefore with different values attached to the people, depending on where in the hierarchy they are.
Right, that's why I don't like a hierarchy.
yeah, exactly. And this sort of, why, because of the complexity is the interactions and the connectivity of things. And hierarchy doesn't really survive in that context.
No, to me, hierarchy is only good for arranging or thinking ideas, or maybe military, because you just need that in a sense to follow orders. Because you couldn't get stuff done, in a sense. But other than that, in most
think about the military. I mean, even today, the military cannot, in terrorist and guerrilla warfare, if you're trying to operate from hierarchy, you're doomed.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying a total hierarchy. I'm just saying that in a sense, you need to have some people that are in charge, because you have to arrange the movement of people. If everyone is like a berserker or whatever, their own thing, like a Viking or something, they're all fighting their own war for glory or whatever, you're not really going to be able to be a protective force. I mean, because you're not protecting, you're too worried about glory.
Yeah, but I think, so for me, how I see the role of leadership, whether it is in the military or whether it's in an organization in the 21st century, is really to hold and share the overall vision. So what we are trying to achieve, whether it is from the military or the organizational sense. So to provide direction in a way, and to provide the conditions where people are able and willing to pursue that goal, but leave them the freedom on how they do that. Because, that you can no longer control. And so, because, I mean, for me, it is more and more important that more and more people really know what they do and why they are doing it. And it can't be just because they've been told. Because if they then come in a crisis situation, they will have no means of deciding, what. So they really need to understand.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not saying that we should have, total authoritative hierarchies even in the military. No, I think that we should actually teach everybody in a sense to have the ability to be autonomous. But I'm saying that if that is the goal, the autonomous is the goal, the lack of order is the goal, then you're not really going to be a protective force. So I'm saying so I'm just saying it has to do with, to me, issue specific. That in general, we should not be doing that, running our, but in certain circumstances where it's too important, you can't have creative people doing something, like someone says, well, I was going to go give the intel to the other side bad information. They did it on their own, but they ended up telling something that was really important they shouldn't have done. I mean, they ended up ruining the whole war. I mean, just one person, doing their own thing. Well, I thought, I'm not saying so.
Yeah, I get it. I absolutely, and that was absolutely not what I was implying.
Though I was just saying that even though I don't like hierarchy in almost anything, I think that in some areas, like that military, it may be just conducive towards our safety. So the issue is that you're just maximizing that to its potential. But I still think as much as we can, we should do hierarchy, that we don't, there's still a structure of ability in a sense, but it's not structured that it has to be fixed like that. Like it's not that one is over another. You can be a great person and I'm a great person. We're two different people. We both can be seen as, in a sense, as leaders or something. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, that you're a leader in this area and I'm a leader in this area, that somehow we're in combat over each other, that you could have two really good ideas.
Yeah, no disagreement.
So, what are your plans for the future? You're going to keep doing what you're doing, or you got new avenues you want to take it to?
Well, it is over the past 3 years, I have been volunteering for an organization that is focused on, as we say, identifying, evaluating, and accelerating sustainable disruptive innovation. And this is definitely one of the things which I've always described. And people think, why do you spend so much time? So I just can't help myself. I describe it, I'm coming to my desk, I want to do something else, and before I know it, I'm doing stuff for this organization again. And that is, I sometimes ask myself, why? And I just think it's just so inspiring, because on a daily basis, it brings me in touch with a number of absolutely amazing people who do amazing stuff in order to make our world a better place. And so whether it is the innovations that we are finding, so we call them nominees, this is an awards program that I'm on. And so whether it is the organizations that come up with these innovations that help make our world a better place, whether it is the volunteers who help us find these nominations, or whether it's the volunteers who help us evaluate them. I mean, it's just such a privilege to be able to work with these people.
Wonderful. So have you got any acknowledgement specific for what you've done? Can you tell us about it?
Acknowledgement?
Yeah, like, in other words, I've had people tell me that my blogs have inspired them, or whatever,
Yeah, I think you get that. Yeah, well, but when someone comes back and as I get a lot of newsletters, and yours is the only one I read, that's really lovely. Absolutely no denying it. or the acknowledgement that of my contribution to this to Katara, that's the name of the organization. That I helped maintain and drive forward the organization. So that's very nice, and it's not why I'm doing it. That's good.
What would you say that, because you brought this up several times, what would you say, because I call it keeping the recurrent current. You kept mentioning it several times, so I wanted to know, when you say that, what is it you're meaning? When you said you do it for you, what does doing it for you mean?
I'm not quite even sure whether I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it because it wants to be done.
Could you explain?
I'm not sure I can.
Oh.
I'm not sure I can. So, I mean, I think it is really, I just feel that many decisions I make, I'm not sitting down saying, what are the pros, what are the cons, what do I get out of it if I do it, what do I not get when I'm not doing it, So I don't sit down to make these lists. I just do.
So, but you're doing it with an internal barometer motivation that you're doing it for yourself. You say. So. I
was wondering the fact that I'm doing it. So it was also more a question to myself, to question my own motive. Right. So is it what is the motivation behind doing what I do? So I always like to challenge myself or ask myself, observe myself.
Well, I think
there are some really things happening.
Well, it's obviously bringing you joy because when you talk about it, it makes you happy. But then I feel like you also feel guilty for that, and I wonder why. That's why I'm asking, because if what you're doing is beneficial and what you're doing is not harmful and what you're doing is giving you meaning and giving your life purpose and helping you feel like you're expressing yourself, I don't hear where any of those are not extremely positive things.
Yes, and on the other hand, there is also, it goes slightly against the grain of maximizing value creation in the financial sense. It is, certainly in financial terms, I could do things that would enable you to contribute more financially.
But also, so what you're saying is you feel bad because you're going with your passion and not what makes you money.
Well, mostly not. Mostly I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and I just feel that I've got abundance in all sorts of other ways, not financially. And then even if I look at the finances, as I said before, life has a way of sorting itself out. I've never really suffered financially. So you see, there's one voice that says, but you need to earn more money. And the other voice then replies, but I'm doing fine. Why should I? But there's this voice that occasionally comes up.
Yeah, I always think about that. I don't make money doing what I do, but I'm a writer and I'm going to put a book out. So my goal is to build systemic value. In other words, that the people see that I am valuable, that I have quality, because that itself to me then because once you can see something's value, then it's like say the iPhone or something, or before anyone ever knew an iPhone, who cares? An expensive phone, but all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, you can do this on it and your computer. Its value increases as you understand it and what it can offer you. To me, that's what sales is constantly trying to do, is get people to believe in the value for themselves. Because once you feel it for yourselves, like you were talking about motivation, once you feel inside that it's valuable, you can almost stop people from getting it. But even if it is valuable, if people don't get the value, you can't almost get them to get it.
Absolutely, you can give it away, and people will not, they don't see the value, they will not value it. It's as easy as that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and so to me, it's hard because I have to understand, the whole dynamics, and the dynamics is how I look, how I, am perceived, is at a lower state that my actual intellect, demands. But instead of, in a sense, feeling threatened by that, I see it as an opportunity to expand on, not just for myself, but for others, that people can look past their own bias. Because I like one time, I'm a big guy. I'm like 6 foot and I weigh like, 300 something pounds, whatever. And, I have people that are amazed that I can be kind. And I think, well, just because of size does not determine how we are. There's people that are small and are super aggressive, and people are tall and they're not. I mean, that really doesn't, and it could be male, female. It doesn't, I mean, people are different, but we have this preconceived mindset that we demand everything fit into. And then we almost get irritated when it doesn't fit. Like, you're not fitting that thing, Whoa, the world's going to end.
Yeah, absolutely. The little boxes that our brain likes.
And to me,
yeah.
I would say, to me, it's really about what our value is, and that's what I'm hearing you is that you put out the value, you put out that which is important to you.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the most received one that you did, like that people really connected to? Can you tell us about it? In other words, like you said, you put out these blogs. Is there a specific blog that you put out that people really, connected to?
Well, I think there's always a bunch of people who write back that they connect to that particular piece, and it's generally different ones for different pieces.
Can you pick one specifically that you remember?
Oh, not really.
Oh, not really? Okay.
Not really. So I think sort of the maybe sort of talking about the dark side of civilization. So that because I think innovation is generally, everyone talks about wanting more innovation. Whether it's the government or whether it's organization or whatever level it is. They all call for more innovation. And so I think then to talk about the dark side of innovation, challenging, just asking the question, so why do you want to innovate? And challenging that innovation is always the best thing. And especially with the, anything new we do will require some kind of resources. And so, does it mean that are we saving so many more resources that it justifies spending these new resources that will be required? Like for I don't know how many years ago, the war was after the financial crisis, and the UK government was offering a buyback scheme or contribution to, if you buy a new car, we give you 2,000, and they sort of were cloaking it a little bit under the sustainability umbrella. I was just like, are you really telling me that buying a new car that might be slightly more energy efficient is better for the environment than maintaining a car that might be slightly older and has slightly, but it keeps those resources in circulation and useful? So you're really trying to tell me that this is more sustainable, really? So this for me is, this belief in the new is always better, especially from a sustainability perspective. That I don't, it cannot possibly be true. It needs more questioning and having more awareness, more digging into things in order to really decide which is the more sustainable solution. So I think maybe that's it. Maybe sort of talking about creating an awareness for the dark side of innovation.
So the dark side of innovation would be that people want to make the old car better and thus keep the car, or do you mean that? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, in other words, I could make innovations that keep making those ridiculous gas cars work, forever. or as you were saying, or maybe I could come up with an idea that we use a different type of fuel. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about electric. I'm just saying that there's other elements, chemicals in the world, and we have science, and we create all kinds of technology of synthetic everything. I don't know why we even have to keep using gas anyways. Why? I mean, why have we already made some kind of a synthetic thing that doesn't make molecules that destroy the ozone?
I mean, sort of for me, the dark side of innovation is that there are several aspects to it. Sort of one is that I think that the innovation iterations are far too fast. So, smartphones are one example. The rate at which new iterations of a smartphone come out are such that as consumer it's almost impossible to absorb. And it creates this type of always wanting to have the latest version, whereas the old one will probably be absolutely perfect for another 3 to 5 or even I don't know how many years.
Right.
And yet there's sort of this that for me the constant bringing out of new iterations. And I mean, for someone like me, I'm trying to hang on to my things as long as possible because I can't understand why I should choose this version over that one. Especially if another one is coming out tomorrow. So why might as well wait as long as possible before I change that. I should feel a change between the different versions. So that for me is one side of one dark side or the aspect of dark side of innovation. Another aspect is probably that we seem to be so enamored with doing things that are possible just because they are possible. So we are not challenging, is it actually beneficial? Is it desirable? Is it genuinely a good thing to do this just because it's possible? So that's another thing of the dark side. We are not challenging the implications of something we create. And then another one is that once we've created something, I think there are not many things that are only positive or only negative. Most things can be used in a positive way or a negative way.
Well, because I was going to say, when you're talking about innovation, I was thinking about a business. What if a business goal would be to make things addictive? I mean, that would be the goal.
The gaming industry is creating games that are addictive so that people keep buying more things and more and more and more. They are designed to be addictive.
So I was thinking that could be a dark side.
Well, absolutely it is. Absolutely. And I mean, for me, the interesting thing though is that most innovation can be used for good or for bad. Gaming can be used to create awareness, to educate, to bring out important information to the masses in a very playful way, in a way that people are willing to engage with. And it can be used to make people addicted. It is the innovation is the same, yet how it manifests and how it is being used is very different. The other examples are cosmetic surgery. If someone has been in a fire, someone has been disfigured, it can help people get their confidence back or allow them to go back to a certain level of normality. And yet it can be used to keep people artificially young, which I give me a break, So all the other things that can be done with plastic surgery without making things more perfect on the outside, no matter what it looks like on the inside. So the innovation is the same, yet how it is applied is, in my view, very positive or very negative. Or, cosmetic surgery is a great way to generate a lot of money with people's damage.
Yeah. Do you have any issues with gender in relation to getting off ideas? I know my wife at her job, they almost don't listen to her even when she has great ideas simply because she's a female. A guy could say the same thing and it would be received better, which is ridiculous. But I'm just wondering, do you ever experience any of that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most times it amuses me rather than annoys me. So my first degree was architecture and town planning, and I worked as a town planner in a small private practice. And so if we would go to council meetings, it would be my boss, male, and me, female. And we would go to the meeting, and they would almost want to hand me their coats and ask me to bring the coffee and whatever. And I just sort of didn't react to that, and then I would get up and give the presentation, and I watch their faces go. I just keep it, So this is the thing. I cannot change how other people react. I can only change how I myself react. And it either upsets me or annoys me, and I feel discriminated against. I know what I can do.
So do you ever deal with that innovation of how to integrate more gender positive, work environments?
So say that again.
I said, in your innovation, do you ever deal with trying to help better gender environments, like evolve? In other words, you know what I'm saying?
I think it is in the way it is. Because innovation thrives through diversity, that by its nature opens up opportunity to bring equality in all sorts of senses, including gender equality, into it. So that bringing women into innovation teams has certain implications, because they do things slightly differently, they think differently, and so therefore you have the opportunity to bring different perspectives.
I agree.
One interesting thing though is that when I started with innovation in the early 90s, one interesting observation was that I used to also run networking groups for a long period. And so, unlike other business contexts, I felt that the innovation context was one where women were at least equally represented. Which I thought was really quite interesting. Until I was sitting at an innovation conference a few years ago, where all of a sudden, all the speakers seemed to be male. And I just thought, this is really interesting, what's happening, what's going on? And my interpretation, my conclusion of that was that when innovation started to move up the agenda in organizations, it was still not the position of power and influence. It was a position of passion, passion and curiosity. So that's when women were taking these roles. When innovation moved up on the corporate agenda in its importance, that's when men started to move in. That might only be my interpretation, but I think I've got a little bit of that.
Oh, I bet that's not too far from accurate, because I think that's a general way that the world kind of works, probably. That men think of it in a sense of conquering, and women that think of more social, connections, and just in general. To me, it's not that to be that everyone is gender, equivalent. Because I don't think so. I think a lot more kind of like both male and female. I don't think that you can limit to how people, but I do agree that we need different ideas. We need to have all of it, because when we limit to stuff, it limits our potential to develop. And to me, I've never understood why people, value sexism at all. I mean, it's just complete, utter nonsense to me. I mean, it's the same thing as...
There's a lot of nonsense out there, and in the end, for me, sort of, it's captured in Indian wisdom, which basically says it will take all of us to save us.
Yeah, I make a statement all the time that we rise by helping each other, because I realize that the only reason that we're our not humanity, I don't just mean like a specific person, I'm talking about our entire humanity. Our sharing of information, our helping each other, just imagine if all the medical advancements were only kept to one country. I mean, or science only stayed to one region. I mean, it's the act of the sharing of this stuff that's actually made us develop, that made us the best of who we are. And I think that we need to hear all voices, because there's often, like you were saying, there's a monkey in the room and all of us are not seeing it. Sometimes we need someone to come in and go, hey, what's going on? But I think that it goes back to the feeling of being in control. You were talking about that we have this feeling of wanting to be in control. And when all ideas are allowed, that doesn't feel like control. But to me, it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I think sort of interestingly, humility shares a great bit in common with humans, except that humans don't seem to have a lot of humility in them anymore in a lot of contexts.
And probably our reaction when we're shown that is not very positive.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people, in a sense, want to change because they don't want to have to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, I always one of my sayings: people don't resist change; people resist being changed.
There you go. That's true.
And also, most people are very happy to change if they perceive the change to be beneficial to them and of value. Then there's no problem changing. It's just when they feel that something's being taken away from them that they do not want to change.
Right. So it's our narrative. It's how we internally structure how we perceive it. To me, we run most of our lives off of our phenomenology, our internal emotional reaction to the world, more than just a plain looking at the facts. It's our emotional reaction. Like I see, I'm going to die at a certain time, then it's my anxiety about that I add to everything that I think about that, not just the thing itself.
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you. And if you have anything else that you want to say, let us know, or plug any of your, stuff, your blog or whatever. I'm going to put a blog together with your information. So, but go ahead and tell us whatever you want. Tell us about you. Where should we find you?
Well, if you put my name into Google, you will find me very easily. And if you come across any sustainable disruptive innovation, or the innovation kind that makes the world a better place, definitely let me know. And you can also just let me know via the Hatrava website. It's very easy. KATERVA.net. I would be absolutely delighted in further and see whether we can amplify the fantastic stuff that's going on as much as ever possible.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate it, and I'll let you go.